Our social constructions of what's normal can be a powerful force. Our tendency towards ethnocentrism, or centering on our own culture, leads us to see anything that deviates from our norms as strange or even evil. Here you see two women both experiencing culture shock and reacting ethnocentrically to each other's norms of appropriate clothing. They don't use Verstehen, understanding each other's reasons for their behavior, and so make biased conclusions based on prejudice. Almost anywhere you go in the world, at some point, you're likely to end up interacting with someone from a different cultural background. Multiculturalism celebrates this diversity and works towards mutual respect and equality. That means not reacting to culture shock with ethnocentrism, basing your judgments on your own culture's norms, but instead with cultural relativism, which means trying to understand what their behavior means relative to their own culture. So if you offer me escargot, a French snail dish, my initial culture shock will probably lead to a feeling of disgust because I'm not used to it, but I will try to react with cultural relativism, saying, I'm not used to eating that, but I hear many people think it's delicious. Maybe I'll even try it, or maybe I'll let them enjoy it. Getting used to different norms of behavior in material culture like foods and greetings is fairly easy once you get used to it. But non-material culture can often be more difficult to treat with cultural relativism, because we have to understand reasoning relative to different internal values, what you consider good, important, and desirable. Many Americans react negatively to the word socialism because they see it as in opposition to our common individualistic values, believing that individual competition and self-promotion is what's most important. But many cultures are more collectivist, believing that the duty of the individual is to the group, that promotion of the community is most important. In The Lion King, we see cultural values of the dominant group being tradition and multiculturalism, as we see Mufasa teach Simba about his role as king within the larger circle of life, and the importance of respect for all creatures. We also see traditional segregation, with the hyenas relegated to the elephant graveyard. Sociologists Robin Williams, not the actor, and James Henslin researched American culture to discover our 15 most common values. Politicians recognize the importance of appealing to voters' values, so you'll hear them talk about them regularly. President Obama brings up the complexity of cultural values, that we believe not just in individual freedom, hard work, and success, but also in equality and humanitarianism, that we should each give back and help others. America was founded by people seeking a better life, and grew by pushing forward toward the western frontier. That history has left its mark as we seek out newer and better ways of living. You can often see our values utilized in advertising, each product offering a quicker, easier, more advanced life, and promising what time we can save for comfort and love. Our shared values are some of our most essential but abstract social structures that lay the groundwork for our formal institutions. As seen in our recent politics, values can be contradictory and divisive as we idealize democracy and equality, but in reality tend towards ethnocentrism and an assumption that my group, my party, culture, and religious beliefs are the right ones. Yet we are a nation of immigrants from all over the world. When different cultures meet, they can interact in different ways. Do we celebrate our differences with multicultural pluralism, giving people the option to retain their heritage and react to new people in ways with cultural relativism? Or do we still segregate different groups, keeping them apart and in their place with institutional discrimination? Either way, and despite an increasing number of interracial families, most Americans still practice endogamy, or marriage within the group. But ethnic groups can and do change as they come into contact. Do different cultures each diffuse into one another equally, creating an amalgamation of many different cultural traditions, the classic image of the American melting pot? Or is there a dominant group that expects all others to assimilate to its own culture? Despite the fact that English was brought into this land by immigrants, is assimilating to that as the dominant language the only way to be accepted? This country has seen more extreme forms of group inequality, which we'll talk about after the midterm. But different groups can also exploit one another, exile them from society, or even commit genocide, trying to kill off a group entirely. What does it mean to be an American? Are we one big ethnic group with minor subcultural differences, or a society made up of many different ethnic groups with differing norms and values? Many Americans who identify most strongly with their ancestral racial or ethnic group are surprised to find those outside of America often identify them simply as an American. Yet regional differences have long been noted, and when you look at the results of national elections, you can see a major divide between North and South in the original territories. You can also see differences between the frontiers of the Midwest and the West Coast, where I'm from. Before the results were finalized for the 2012 presidential election, you could see a much more complex divide between states that were clearly for Obama, clearly for Romney, or those that were undecided. Colin Woodard explained these differences by showing where the dominant immigrant groups settled and built lasting social structures on their own ethnic cultures. Although the cultures have changed over time and other groups have moved in or were there already, the most powerful group to set up a permanent modern society created the norms and values to which one had to assimilate to be successful in formal institutions. So while African culture has been influential in informal norms of material culture in the South, it was the English slavers and Scots-Irish hill folk, both distrustful of collective government, that set the course for regional politics and moved into the Midwest. The Puritans believed in the power of the collective to improve society and set the tone for the North, while also influencing the West Coast, while English aristocrats, Quakers, Latin Caribbeans, and Mexicans mixed things up in other areas. It's an interesting theory that the evidence mostly supports, but it's not the only divide in American culture. Looking more closely, you can also see divides in every region between those living in urban areas, which you can see in the tall spikes here, and the rural country areas. Cultures change with the life experiences of the individuals that construct them. Next time, we'll look deeper at divides that occur within a culture.